It was one of those evenings where the world seemed a little heavier than usual. The sun was dipping low behind the rooftops of Maple Street, throwing long shadows across the cracked pavement. John Carter, a 38-year-old single father, dragged himself home after a long day at the auto repair shop. His hands were blackened with grease, his back stiff from bending under hoods all day, and his heart weighed down with worries he couldn't shake off. Bills piled on the kitchen counter, rent long overdue, and his daughter Lily, just 11 years old, needed new shoes for school. He wanted so badly to give her a childhood untouched by struggle, but every day felt like a battle he was slowly losing. He tried to keep a brave face, cracking jokes with her at dinner, pretending everything was fine, but when the house went quiet at night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, praying for a miracle. It was on one of those weary evenings that he noticed something unusual. As he passed the old white fence belonging to his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, he saw a section had collapsed. The once sturdy posts now leaned awkwardly, the wooden slats scattered across the grass. She was out there, struggling to prop one up, her frail hands trembling. John hesitated. He was exhausted. All he wanted was to sit down, eat leftovers with Lily, and let the world fade away. But as he watched the elderly woman trying and failing to lift the fence piece, something inside him stirred. His father, long gone now, used to say, "Son, if you see someone struggling and you can help, don't think twice. Kindness has a way of coming back when you least expect it." He sighed, dropped his bag on the porch, and walked over. "Need a hand, Mrs. Whitmore?" he asked gently. The old woman looked up, sweat on her wrinkled brow, and gave a tired smile. "Oh, John, I didn't want to bother anyone. This old fence just gave out on me. I thought I could fix it, but—" She shook her head, embarrassed. "Don't worry about it," John said, rolling up his sleeves despite the ache in his arms. "Let me take care of it." For the next few hours, long after the sun had set, John worked under the dim light of the street lamp. He hammered, nailed, and lifted, his muscles screaming in protest. Lily sat on the porch steps, watching her dad with quiet admiration. Mrs. Whitmore brought out lemonade and cookies, apologizing over and over, but John just smiled and told her it was nothing. By the time he was done, the fence stood tall again, sturdy as ever. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes glistened. "I don't know how to thank you, John. You've always been such a good neighbor." He shrugged it off. "Just glad to help. You take care of yourself, okay?" That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, I'm proud of you." Those 4 words sank deep into his soul, chasing away, if only for a moment, the shadows of despair. The next morning, John woke to the sound of knocking. Groggy, he opened the door and found Mrs. Whitmore standing there, holding a small envelope. "I know you didn't fix the fence for anything in return," she said softly, "but please, take this." John opened the envelope to find a check, $500. His eyes widened. "Mrs. Whitmore, I can't accept this. It was just a fence." She placed a gentle hand on his. "And yet, you showed me more kindness than I've seen in years. You didn't hesitate. That matters." John's throat tightened. He wanted to refuse, but he also knew that $500 could buy groceries, shoes for Lily, maybe even pay down the electricity bill. Still, it wasn't about the money, it was about dignity. "Thank you," he finally whispered. What John didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Over the weeks that followed, Mrs. Whitmore started inviting John and Lily over for dinner. Her husband had died years ago, and her only son lived states away, rarely visiting. Her house, though warm and filled with old family photos, echoed with loneliness. John's laughter, Lily's chatter, and the shared meals brought life back into her home. One evening, as they ate together, Mrs. Whitmore asked John about his life. He hesitated, but her kind eyes encouraged him. He spoke of losing his wife to illness years ago, of raising Lily alone, of the constant struggle to make ends meet. He admitted his dreams had grown smaller over time, no longer about success or adventure, but simply about surviving another month. Mrs. Whitmore listened quietly, her expression unreadable. Then she said something that stuck with him. "You may think you're struggling, John, but the way I see it, you're one of the richest men I know. Not in money, but in heart. You love your daughter fiercely, you help others without expecting anything back, and you haven't let hardship turn you bitter. That kind of wealth doesn't fade." Her words lit a small fire inside him, one he hadn't felt in years. A month later, John's world nearly crumbled again. The auto shop where he worked announced layoffs. Business had slowed, and despite his years of loyalty, John was one of those let go. He came home that day defeated, holding the pink slip in his calloused hands. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, wondering how he'd tell Lily. How would he keep a roof over their heads now? The knock came again. It was Mrs. Whitmore. She noticed his red eyes, the papers on the table. Without a word, she walked in and poured him tea. "Tell me," she said gently. He explained, his voice breaking, and for the first time in years, he cried openly. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty platitudes, just sat with him until he finished. Then, she handed him a folded document. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "My late husband owns several rental properties," she explained. "I've been struggling to manage them alone. I need someone trustworthy, someone hardworking, someone with integrity. I can't think of anyone better than you. If you're willing, I'd like to hire you as the property manager. It pays better than the shop ever did." John stared at her, speechless. This is too much," he whispered. She smiled warmly. "You fixed my fence, John. But more than that, you reminded me what kindness feels like. Let me return the favor." That night, as he lay in bed, John couldn't sleep, not from worry, but from overwhelming gratitude. Life had been so unkind for so long that he'd forgotten what hope felt like. Now, because of a single act of neighborly kindness, his life, and Lily's, was changing. The months rolled on. John took on his new role with dedication. The income allowed him to catch up on bills, buy Lily new clothes, and even save a little. Slowly, the weight on his shoulders lifted. He still worked hard, but now there was purpose, stability, and even joy. And through it all, Mrs. Whitmore became more than a neighbor. She became family. She attended Lily's school recitals, shared holiday dinners, and told stories of her youth by the fireplace. In return, John mowed her lawn, fixed her leaky pipes, and made sure she never felt alone again. One evening, as they sat together watching Lily do her homework, Mrs. Whitmore said softly, "Funny thing about fences, isn't it? Sometimes they keep people apart. But sometimes, when they fall, they bring people together." John felt his eyes sting with tears. Years later, as Lily prepared to graduate high school, John looked back on that night with awe. If he had walked past, if he had chosen his exhaustion over compassion, his life might have remained stuck in hardship. Instead, a single act of kindness had opened doors he never imagined. At Lily's graduation ceremony, Mrs. Whitmore sat beside John, holding his hand. She whispered, "Your father would be proud. You didn't just fix a fence, John, you built a future." And in that moment, John realized the truth. Kindness doesn't just change lives, it multiplies, weaving people together, turning strangers into family, and despair into hope.